This is Heather, CEO of Finishing Move Limited. Now, I am here with John from Wrestling with Johnners, and I want to talk a little bit about the Fight Forever wrestling show Inferno that we went to last night. John?
Yep, so it was at the Action Indoor Sports Centre in Bristol. So it's a fairly local event for us to get to. Didn't take too long to get there. And we got there about 4:30, and I think they were just letting in for the VIP at the time. Now, we didn't have tickets for the VIP, but we were hoping they might be able to sell us a couple of tickets. But we got a bit fed up of waiting, so we went for something to eat. But we did come back shortly after, where they were letting in for the main show. So when we got there about 6:15, and the show started at 7 o'clock. So it was all very professional. Seemed to be quite a professional setup, with all the big video boards and lights. So yeah, it looked like they put a lot of effort into the presentation. And the first person that came out was Cody, Don't Call Me Rhodes.
Ooh.
So that was good. He kind of introduced the show. Obviously, he's injured at the moment, so he wasn't able to wrestle. But he was a big part of the Fight Forever tour that they're doing around the UK. And he was quite entertaining.
Yeah.
What did you think of Cody?
I thought he was great. He's got such great presence and personality anyway. A real kind of tour de force. Obviously, you've all been following him kind of in his recent exploits, which we can kind of go on to a little bit later when we're talking about what we did after the watching the wrestling, when we went to the Bruce Prichard podcast, where he was talking a little bit about what he's been doing.
He didn't take himself too seriously.
No.
He was having a bit of banter with the fans in the audience, taking the mickey with how cold it was in that in the Action Indoor Sports Centre, and it was bloody cold as well. But he set the scene, and really nice guy, always decked out in very smart suits. But really nice to see him. And then we kind of got on with our first match, which was the Grizzled Young Veterans, and that's Zack Gibson and James Drake versus Flash Morgan Webster and Travis Banks. So 4 really talented individuals that you've probably seen on the independent circuit around the UK. You've almost certainly seen them on NXT UK if you watched that on the WWE Network. I've mentioned him quite a few times in my podcasts. But it was nice to see some fairly well-known talent in the first match, and the first time I've seen Travis Banks wrestle. What did you think?
Well, this is the second time I've seen Flash Morgan Webster wrestle, and I have to say, he's massively improved.
Yeah.
And maybe it's got something to do with all of the work that's been put into the NXT UK roster. But both tag teams were amazing. Zack Gibson on the mic is always an absolute pleasure to watch.
He was such a heel. We got so boos all round. Obviously, anybody that's seen him on TV know that he is just a natural heel. He's a natural on the mic. He really gives it to the crowd, and the crowd give it back to him as well. There's some individuals that were trying to, get the shoes off if you hate Gibson chant going, and stand up if you hate Gibson, and that worked to a certain degree. But both him and James Drake were interacting with the fans in the front row and kind of getting them to hate them even more. But it was really, really good. I thought it was an excellent opener. Really fun action. Definitely set the tone. And the winners in the end were the Grizzled Young Veterans. So I think there was lots of really good action. I know that Flash Morgan Webster and Travis Banks are not usually tag teams together, but the Grizzled Young Veterans, they have been together for quite a while. But both teams gelled really well. I thought it was a very entertaining opener.
Oh, yeah.
The heel team of Drake and Gibson walked away as the winners. So it was a good opener, good way to start the night.
I'd like to see them win again, even though they were the heels of the match. I absolutely love them. So.
Yeah, I think for entertainment value, is an excellent way to start the show.
Yeah.
Then it went into Rampage. Many people might know Rampage as Rampage Brown, but he was up against Justin Sizem. Both of them familiar to the UK audience because they were stars on the World of Sport Saturday afternoon special earlier on in the summer.
Yeah.
And Rampage was definitely the heel. Justin Sizem definitely the babyface here. Some chants in the crowd that Justin Sizem was a bootleg Cena, which was quite entertaining. But
he liked it too. You could tell he was smiling away when he heard that. So that was quite nice as well to feel more that not just are we there to be treated to some excellent wrestling, but the wrestlers themselves are down to earth and understand that we want to have our fun just as much as they do.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rampage was an excellent heel, and he was kind of interacting with the crowd as you would expect bad guys to do. But yeah, I've not seen any of these two wrestle before, but I certainly had a lot more respect for them by the end of the match. And Justin Sizem, the babyface, walked away the winner. I think Justin Sizem is actually the current World of Sport champion, so I suppose that was only fitting. But it was a fairly entertaining match between two reasonably well-known wrestlers, and I think they both played their part quite well.
Continued the hype that it had already been started from the first match quite nicely.
Yeah, so. there wasn't a dip in the atmosphere at all. Okay, then it went into a match that I was particularly looking forward to. We had Viper and Bea Priestley versus Millie McKenzie and Brandi Rhodes. So you can call her Rhodes, but you can't call Cody Rhodes.
No, that's right.
Not anymore, because anyway.
Allowed.
But this was a really fun match. I think all four wrestlers did a good job. Bea Priestley didn't seem to get involved in the match too much, to be honest with you. It was a lot of Millie and a lot of Viper. I think they're the two more experienced workers in the ring compared to Brandi and Bea Priestley. But
perhaps they're getting a push.
Maybe. I know that Millie McKenzie is actually the current Fight Forever Women's Champion. So she was given quite a big role in this tag match. And Viper is a very, very experienced female competitor on the independent circuit around the UK. Some people may know her from the World of Sport show that took place over the summer, and some may know her from the Mae Young Classic that took place last year, 2017. But it's a really good match, and it won when Brandi Rhodes was able to perform a spear on Viper for the win. So the baby faces of Brandi Rhodes and Millie McKenzie walked away with the win there. What did you think?
I thought it was fantastic. Yeah, some really, really great technical work from Millie as well, who I didn't really have any expectations of kind of coming into this, a relatively new wrestling fan and not having that much experience with this, with kind of her at all. So she was amazing. Really, really, really impressed. And the best thing I think about it was that they were giving it such great chat to each other in the ring. I really liked to kind of watch them tell the story.
Yeah.
They did that really well and got the crowd into it as well.
Yeah.
So smashed it.
Yeah, really good storytelling, really good action. One of my favourite matches of the night.
Yeah.
But as Heather will testify, I'm a big Viper fan.
Oh yeah.
So sad to see her lose, but great to see her in the flesh and see her wrestle. Really enjoyed that one. Next up, we saw El Phantasmo versus Joe Hendry. Now, I wasn't too familiar with El Phantasmo before we got the tickets for Fight Forever, so maybe he's a fairly new wrestler on the independent circuit. I'm sure he's more well known than I'm giving him credit for. But Joe Hendry, like I say, well known on the independent circuit for ICW up in Scotland and for the World of Sport special, even for TNA in the States. So definitely an experienced, well-versed wrestler. We quite enjoyed his entrance music.
Oh yeah, we did.
That he sang his own entrance music. So really, really good.
Shades of Shawn Michaels there a little bit.
But,
loved it.
Yeah, but El Phantasmo, quite an athletic, high-flying character. So lots of cool moves. Joe Hendry playing the heel in this match, and he played it very, very well. I thought it was another fairly good match. Like I said, I was quite into Joe Hendry and everything he did in the ring, and what I found was quite amusing is every time Joe Hendry did a move, he said his own name, which was quite amusing.
He was trying to get the crowd to say it too, and we just weren't really having any of it, because as the match went on, El Phantasmo really showed himself to be maybe not the better wrestler, but definitely wanting to show off what he can do. So he was getting more and more impressive by the minute. Yeah. So I think Joe was losing a little bit of crowd support that he had from the very beginning. But it was still a very entertaining match. Yeah. Very, very impressive from them both.
Yeah, I think some things that stuck out in my mind from this match in particular was El Phantasmo's athleticism. He did a spot where he walked around the top rope around all four sides, did lots of top rope maneuvers, lots of high-flying moves. So yeah, I'm going to be keeping a keen eye on him in the future. Definitely someone to look out for. Like I say, maybe I'm not giving him enough credit for his experience. First time I've seen him, I don't really know too much about him, but he finished that match with my respect. So a really good match, and he actually walked away with the win as well.
He did, he did, and he deserved it too.
Yeah, very good. Next match was quite an entertaining match. We had Kip Sabian and is it Yeaston Reese? Anyway, versus Shah Samuels and Martin Kirby. So I'm familiar with Shah Samuels and Martin Kirby once again from the UK independent scene and from the world of sports. I think Kip Sabian and Yeaston Reese was also in the world of sport, but quite a good tag match, our third tag match of the night.
Nice to see so many tag matches.
Yeah, no, it's really, really good. Shah Samuels was a real character.
Yeah.
And usually plays a heel on TV, or certainly from what I've seen, but he was definitely quite an entertaining babyface in this match.
Yeah.
And really got a lot of crowd support. Was definitely, I think his character's kind of like a bit of a bit, yeah, well, a bit of a cockney really, and reminded me of a bit of an extra from EastEnders, if I'm honest with you. But a really entertaining match, some really good moves. Kip Sabian, much along the same vein as El Phantasmo, quite a high-flying, athletic character.
We really should call him Super Bad.
Oh, is that right?
Kip Sabian, yeah.
Super Bad Kip Sabian.
Every time he did a move, he was saying Super Bad like that, and I absolutely loved it. I think in 6 months' time, he's gonna have crowds all over the place, a bit like Adam Cole, baby. Yeah, it's gonna be that's
his Adam Cole, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that was really good. Shah Samuels got the pin there for his team. Him and Martin Kirby walked away with the win. A really entertaining match. So I think we've been spoilt to some good matches so far.
Yeah.
Really good card. One thing going into this whole show was I was very surprised at how stacked the talent roster was for these shows. Bearing in mind that Fight Forever is a brand new promotion. I started from nothing by a couple of brothers who were just wrestling fans not even a year ago, and they've kind of built this thing up from scratch, self-financed it, planned it themselves. Everything was fairly well organised from when we first got to the building, the security and all the regulations and the way they were handling the VIP, although we didn't get in there, of course. But yeah, absolutely. But really, really impressed with the talent roster. Like I say, a lot of NXT UK talent, a lot of World of Sport talent, and bringing stars over from the States as well. But Shah Samuels definitely stood out, was a real fan favourite, a great character. Immediately following the match, I think he grabbed the remains of a pint from a fan in the front row and downed it at ringside, and then he jumped over the barrier, went to the bar, which was directly behind where we were sat, and ordered 2 pints.
He did.
So I think he was enjoying himself.
Today's show is brought to you by Finishing Move Limited, specialising in the simple, stylish and versatile to help you elevate your everyday. Check out their Instagram at Finishing Move Limited and find their elevated essentials range at finishingmovelimited.com.
Well, let's move on anyway. The next match was Amir Jordan and El Ligero.
Again, another crowd favourite. Amir Jordan came out and he was loving it. He had a cool song on. He was dancing around to it.
Yeah.
He was running around, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. And El Ligero from Mexico.
Oh yeah. Or is he?
Well, yes. But a really fun and entertaining match, and you could tell. You can see from this match why both wrestlers have been signed by the WWE, why both wrestlers work for NXT UK. Both excellent, very, very smooth workers in the ring. I think their styles complemented one another. Amir Jordan, quite athletic, lots of fast-paced moves.
So fun to watch.
Yeah. El Ligero, the more high-flying worker, and like I say, one of the hardest workers on the UK independent scene.
Yeah.
But really enjoyed this match. I think this is probably my favourite match of the night, just for the entertainment, the moves, the match, the storytelling. Really loved it, and I think Amir Jordan walked away with the win at the end there.
He did, but they had a little hug at the end, which I always enjoy at the end of a wrestling match.
So 2 baby faces. I don't think any of them really stood out as heels, so I would say 2 baby faces here in this match, and a really, really fun match. After the match, Amir Jordan ran round the ring about 4 or 5 times. I don't know why. It was quite bizarre, but entertaining all at the same time. But that just shows what a good character he is.
He's just always hyped. That's what he was saying. He's just super hyped to be here and be a part of the Fight Forever wrestling promotion.
Absolutely. And then we went into our main event. So Flip Gordon, the first ever Fight Forever world champion, I suppose you could say. He won the title a couple of nights previously, and he was up against Jimmy Havoc. Now, I've seen a fair bit of Jimmy Havoc, for Wrestling for Progress. Of course, one of the longest reigning Progress champions of all time. I think the longest reigning Progress champion. And as soon as Jimmy Havoc got in the ring, he basically said, that with Flip coming from the States, he's not come all the way from America to fight him in just a regular match, and he wanted to turn the title match into a hardcore match. So it did eventually become a hardcore match, and they pretty much used everything, didn't they? There was bacon trays, a staple gun.
Yeah, whatever they could find, they were grabbing it, and they were giving us an excellent hardcore match.
Chairs.
We didn't expect it.
No, it was great.
Our favourite, my favourite kind of match anyway, or thinking about matches, historical matches that I love, always going to be in the kind of hardcore realm. And the one disappointment, I think, for us being in the crowd on the side that we were, is that when they jumped into the crowd, chasing each other with baking trays and chairs and whatever they had and the stapler, they went to one of the corners of the room, and so we couldn't actually get a view of everything that went on. But by the time they got back in the ring, Flip Gordon looked like he'd had it, didn't he? He'd seen better days.
Yeah, absolutely. But there were lots of chairs involved. I know that I think it's both Jimmy and Flip Gordon got a pile of chairs in the middle of the ring. Then they were. I think Flip Gordon was encouraging fans to pass him their chair so that they could add to the pile of chairs, which was quite interactive. I did have flashbacks to an ECW show that I saw over 20 years ago, where they were just throwing chairs into the ring, and I did kind of fear for my life at one point. I thought that everybody was going to start throwing their chairs. That didn't happen. Instead, we got an ironing board. So not your typical hardcore weapon.
But those British fans were like, yeah,
weapon of choice. But I think the ironing board was more over than some of the wrestlers. But so we saw some really cool spots in the ring where Jimmy Havoc and Flip Gordon was being suplexed and thrown through chairs and through ironing boards. But we didn't quite get the end of the match that we was expecting, because Joe Hendry, who I'm guessing on a previous Fight Forever show had won the Ace in a Case briefcase, which similar to Money in the Bank would have entitled him to a championship match. So he cashed in his Ace in a Case and turned the match into a three-way. And within less than 5 minutes, Joe Hendry won the match. I think it was Jimmy Havoc that he pinned, and he ended up winning the title match to become the second ever Fight Forever world champion.
It was amazing.
Yeah, no, it was great to see a title change. I like the twist with Joe Hendry coming in and cashing in. And like I say, it almost normalised the hardcore element that we had before, turning it into a standard three-way match.
Ugly.
Yeah, turn it into a standard three-way match. And it was a fun main event, quite a highlight with a title change at the end, and kind of a good conclusion to the wrestling show.
Unexpected, amazing performances. Such energy. Fantastic event. We'll definitely go to the next ones that they have.
Definitely.
100%. This is now a promotion that you've got to support, whatever you're doing.
Absolutely. And with the talent that they used last night and over the 4-night tour, I don't think you'd be disappointed if you catch a Fight Forever wrestling event in the future. And I know that they've got some more shows booked for 2019.
Get yourself there.
There we go. So while they were taking down the ring, there was an opportunity to meet some wrestlers. Obviously, some of the talent was selling their shirts and signing autographs, taking photos. So we met a few. We met Viper, who I was very happy to have my photo taken with, Flash Morgan Webster, Millie McKenzie, Travis Banks, Amir Jordan, and we saw Cody and Brandi Rhodes.
We did.
So that was quite exciting.
So exciting. Cody's been like a hero for so long, so it was so cool to go and actually meet them, shake the hand of them both, and we had our photo taken with the championship.
Yeah, with the IWGP US title, so that was quite cool, and it was heavier than I was expecting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's not like these replica toy belts you can get from Toys R Us or used to be able to get from the toy shop. It was a proper piece of hardware. It was pretty cool, but they were quite personable. They were very chatty, really interested. They appeared interested in us and interested in talking to us, so that was pretty cool. But that was a nice way to end that segment of it. So yeah, and the only thing I didn't like about it is just how goddamn gorgeous both of them are.
Oh.
Two amazingly beautiful individuals, Cody and Brandi.
And their dog as well, who wasn't there. It's just as beautiful as they are, Pharaoh.
Yeah, that's the only thing I hear about them is how beautiful they are. So then it didn't end there, because the price of admission also included a live show at the end of it. So they've got a kind of a side room. There must have been a few hundred seats in there, and it was presenting Bruce Prichard and Conrad Thompson with their usual podcast show, Something to Wrestle With, but in the live stage show format. I've actually been to a live Something to Wrestle With show when I went to New Orleans in April, but Heather, you haven't.
No, my first time.
Yeah, so you hadn't really listened to any of their podcasts before Saturday night, but what did you think of the whole thing?
Well, I only know them from the network show that they did. They did Something Else to Wrestle With. So from that, I kind of got a sense of their format and how they talk. And I've always really loved, how, Bruce will go off on a tangent and Conrad will kind of bring it back in and kind of get him kind of talking about the point. But he's also very, very challenging. And there was definitely an element of that tonight. But I think what we really saw was them letting their hair down.
Yeah.
They were just enjoying themselves. They started the show by kind of saying, have we got any bad parents in here? Because
yeah, it's not exactly PG.
No, it's not PG. But it wasn't too bad. They told some great stories about Vince McMahon as a family man, as a boss, as someone that they've worked with for, in Bruce's case, I think something like 45 years.
Well, I think, 20, 25 years, but I know Bruce Prichard's been in the wrestling business from being a young lad, but then they started telling old Dusty stories, Dusty Rhodes stories, and then what would you know? But Cody came out to interrupt one of their very amusing Dusty stories, and thought he'd get in on the banter and the storytelling. And I think once Cody got out there, it really took off. I think there were some really funny stories about when he was growing up. Apparently he was afraid of Sting when he was younger, and he used to be a big fan of him, but he did used to scare him for some reason. Don't know if it was the face paint. But it's a very amusing story about that. So some really cool story. Apparently, Dusty wasn't a poor son of a plumber. He apparently was a little bit more well off than people gave him credit for. But it was quite an amusing story that when Goldust, apparently he just signed a WWE contract, or he was doing well for himself, and 1 month he bought his dad a Jeep. The following month he bought Cody a Jeep. The third month he bought himself a Jeep, and then the fourth month he got fired from WWE, so he had to sell all 3 Jeeps because it all went a little bit south after that.
Yeah.
But some really cool stories. But they actually handed it over to the audience, didn't they? So it was a Q&A where they gave the audience a chance to ask Bruce, Conrad, and Cody questions. So there was a few questions about Cody's future going into 2019 and what the future holds for him. I think a lot of us know that his Ring of Honor and New Japan contracts are up either at the end of this year or early 2019, and there's a lot of speculation about whether him and the Bucks and Kenny Omega might be going to WWE, or whether they might be starting up their own promotion. All Elite Wrestling has been rumoured as a new promotion starting up in 2019, headed by the Elite. But he wasn't giving anything away. He was keeping the cards very close to his chest. But he kind of blushed a little bit every time somebody brought up a new promotion. And I think something's in the works there, so we shall have to see with that. But a really, really fun Q&A. I think that lasted for about an hour, so we was out there by just after 11 o'clock. But I think all in all, it was excellent value for money from the wrestling to meeting the wrestlers afterwards, meeting Cody and Brandi and getting to hold the New Japan US title, and then the Something to Wrestle With show afterwards. So really good value for money. If they do this again in the future, I'd love to be there.
100%. I think the one thing we forgot to mention is that the Godfather was there.
He was.
He did a hoe train. I got to see my first hoe train.
Yeah, so that was
amazing.
That was slightly.
And he did an after party.
He did,
which we didn't go to. But next time, perhaps we will. We'll make our way over to the Godfather's after party.
Yeah. So I actually thought that was although a little bit cringy when they were doing the hoe train because they didn't really have any hoes. and not very many women, to be honest with you. There's quite a few guys
Yeah.
part of the Ho train, so I don't think they really knew what they were getting themselves into. But during the VIP meet and greet, which we weren't able to attend, he was there as Papa Shango.
Yeah.
And then for the wrestling and the after show activities, he was there as Godfather. So we're definitely getting our money's worth from Charles right there. But I think, yeah, I'd give this show a solid 9 out of 10. I think entertainment value was very, very good, and really good value for money. And I think it was well organised, really, really stacked card. And like I say, even after the wrestling, there was just as much entertainment to be had.
Yeah. Far more impressive than we could have ever imagined.
Yeah, it was more than we was expecting. But there we go. So next time I go to a wrestling event with Heather, we'll hopefully have more reviews for you in the future. But there we go.
Thank you very much for having me on, Johners, and I'll hope to see you soon.